New subpoenas go out in the Epstein lawsuit. You can see here from the Wall Street Journal via an exclusive. A Google co-founder and other billionaires may be getting those subpoenas to come and appear in a lawsuit connecting JP Morgan to Jeffrey Epstein. We've talked about this case a bit, and there were some new filings in this that I wanted to share because it covers some very interesting things like the protocol for the review of the video materials. Talking Epstein, there's going to be videos, there's going to be photographs. So what is the protocol for reviewing these things? And now we know that there will be other subpoenas going out to people like Sergey Brin, Thomas Pritzker, Mortimer Zuckerman, Michael Ovitz, all asked for information in the U.S. Virgin Island lawsuit against the bank, which is a pretty big deal. We've covered this previously. The U.S. Virgin Islands issued subpoenas this week. Sergey Brin, he's of YouTube, and this is the U.S. Virgin Islands. Zuckerman, Ovitz, others, all asking questions about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. This came from people familiar with the matters. The subpoenas from the territory seek any communications and documents related to the bank and Epstein. A lot of people had money at the banks. The four men are some of the wealthiest people in the United States, and it couldn't be determined why they were being asked for communications from these court documents. In civil cases, lawyers can use subpoenas during discovery to get information. U.S. Virgin Islands sued JP Morgan late last year, saying the bank facilitated Epstein's trafficking and abuse by allowing the financier to remain a client and send money to his victims. They were his bank. The civil lawsuit says JP Morgan received referrals of high-value business opportunities from Epstein and turned a blind eye to his activities. They were banking for all the richest men in the world, and Epstein was funneling him leads. The bank has said it didn't know about Epstein's alleged crimes and can't be held accountable. Mr. Brin, seen here, is going to be the co-founder of Google, got a subpoena. Pritzker runs Hyatt Hotels, got a subpoena. Zuckerman is a real estate billionaire, owner of U.S. News, World, and Report. Ovitz is a venture capitalist and former talent agent for Hollywood stars. The four men couldn't be immediately reached for comment, no kidding. A spokesman for U.S. News, World, and Reports declined to comment. Spokesman for Google and Hyatt didn't respond to requests. Here are these guys here. Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan's chairman and CEO, is also expected to be questioned as part of the case. Epstein had a residence in the Virgin Islands. Lawyers have questioned several more JP Morgan employees so far in the case, and they've sought to have the lawsuit dismissed. But I did pull this up, and we were able to take a look at some of the most recent activities in this case. This is the government of the United States, the Virgin Islands versus JP Morgan. There were a couple of recent filings in March, order granting admission of various other attorneys. So these are just other lawyers who are coming into the case. We've got Brenda Sullivan, we've got Wolgamath, we have Warren, another motion for another lawyer, reviewing some paperwork, setting some deadlines. So not a ton. We have a new case management plan, which will give us some new dates. So we'll have some additional filings that are due by April 10th and the boring scheduling stuff. But this one is interesting. This is the motion to approve the protocol for a review of the video materials and the photographs for the presence of CSAM material and disclosure of those materials. All right. What's the purpose? What's the process? How do we go through some very troubling material safely in a way that doesn't cause it to be spread around the rest of the world? So they drafted this up, and the court will ultimately be reviewing this. But this was filed March 27th, 5 pages. It's a stipulated motion, which means both sides are agreeing to this. So the government and the defense are all agreeing to the procedure. They say that plaintiffs Jane Doe 1 and the government of the United States asked the court for an approval of a protocol authorizing lawyers for the estate of Jeffrey Epstein to review video recorded materials and photographs in the possession and custody and control of the Epstein estate in response to a previous subpoena issued by Jane Doe 1 to disclose that media to Jane Doe 1's lawyers and other parties in the litigation. Okay, here's some factual background. They say the court is aware of the general nature of this case from earlier proceedings. For purposes of this motion, it's relevant to note that Jane Doe 1 has alleged she was the victim of a coerced commercial trafficking by Epstein and his co-conspirators, the only one of whom is Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in custody. Everybody else is still flying around on their private jets all over the world, running things. Jane Doe 1 has issued a subpoena to the Epstein estate, seeking certain video recorded materials and photographs within the Epstein media. And the estate has agreed to produce the responsive media in the estate's possession to the extent that production is not inconsistent with the law, and to the extent that videos and photographs were not downloaded or otherwise obtained through public available sources. Here, they tell us, on March 14, 2023, lawyers for Epstein notified lawyers for Jane Doe 1 that it had located materials within the Epstein media that may be responsive to her subpoenas. So Jane Doe says, I want, Epstein lawyers, I want everything that has me in it. Any files that have me, I want to know about it. The estate has also advised, and they said, we found some. The estate has also advised counsel for the government and Jane Doe 1 of its concern that some of the media might contain CSAM. In this motion, the parties use CSAM as a synonym for what they call the inappropriate term, which is the CP term. It's not consensual, and the P word makes it consensual. They say that this is CSAM material and that the knowing and accessing of this is forbidden by federal law. So why do they have it? The estate, this is the government speaking, right? This is a motion from both sides. It's a stipulated motion. So it's everybody is chiming in on this. We've got, well, these are all the lawyers. So we've got the acting attorney for Virgin Islands. We've got David Boies. We've got Edwards Pottinger. We've got Bradley Edwards, Linda Singer, private counsel, government lawyers, Sigrid McCauley, stipulated and agreed upon by everybody. JP Morgan's on this case. Third-party defendant James Edward Staley's on the case. They're all agreeing to this. So they say, we have found, we think, some stuff in these files that's not so good. The estate of Epstein has expressed concern that its counsel's review of the Epstein media could subject counsel to criminal investigation or charges or civil claims in light of the possibility that the review of the Epstein media could involve accessing CSAM. So Epstein has files with stuff in it, and the lawyers who are going through the files to respond to the subpoena from Jane Doe, the victim, they say, we're scared. We don't even want to look through this, okay? We don't even want to look through this at all. So we got to just tell you what's going on here. The Epstein estate has advised that it does not have any specific knowledge that any of the media does in fact contain CSAM, but wishes to put in place an appropriate procedure in case its counsel encounters such material. So the lawyers are freaked. They're like, we don't want to go through this at all. So what do they say? They say, here's our proposed review protocol. All right. So they say, Judge, against that backdrop, counsel for the government and Jane Doe 1 and the Epstein estate have conferred, and we have agreed that the government and Jane Doe 1 would move the court for an entry of an order approving the following protocol to review all of these materials. 1. The Epstein estate shall review the Epstein media to determine its responsiveness to the subpoenas that have been issued by the victim, Jane Doe 1. If during the course of that review, they can start going through the files. If they go through the files and the Epstein estate sees a particular recording that appears to contain possible CSAM, it shall promptly stop further review of that recording and notify the FBI or any such agency or entity as the FBI may direct of the recording's existence. No CSAM shall be copied or transmitted to any other party except as directed by the FBI. So you've got some poor lawyers who are just going through Epstein's VHS drawer Oh, gosh. If no CSAM is observed during the review, the responsive media will be provided to counsel for Jane Doe 1 and the government in response to the subpoena. To the extent that the responsive media is identified prior to the identification of possible CSAM, such materials also will be produced to counsel. Counsel for Jane Doe 1 and any other recipient of the responsive media may then use this material for the prosecution or the defense of the case as applicable under the rules. Here's the order. They're saying, Your Honor, can you please sign this? This is how we're going to do it. Lawyers are going to look through it. If they find anything, they're going to call the FBI. Just so you know, okay? They were so in other words, when they call the FBI and the FBI shows up and the FBI says, "Why are you in possession of CSAM?" They're going to go, "Hey, we got permission from the court to do it this way. Don't arrest us." And they have something they can sign. So one, they want the judge to order this. One, provide the Epstein estate with an approved protocol for reviewing the media. Provide Jane Doe 1 with the responsive media that may be relevant to her case. And here they say without fear of criminal or civil liability, right? Give them permission to review the documents without fear of liability. Then provide the stuff that might be useful back to Jane Doe. Protect against any disclosures of CSAM, so don't send it out. And follow the directive against the reproduction of any CSAM material. The motion has been agreed to by the parties. All of them agree to it. The judge will very likely sign off on it. And so those poor lawyers at the Epstein estate are going to have to take, I don't know, probably a shower in boiling water to rid themselves of the evil out of that residence. We'll continue to cover that one for sure. Wild story. And that's kind of one of those that you got to dig in there and see how the mechanics are. And it's pretty bad if they're going through those files like that.